discuss some counterfeits to faith, things that we pass on to our children in the guise of faith. That's really not faith at all. We looked yesterday at the biblical context of rearing children in the Lord, the natural, organic environment in which children grow up in the Lord, not so much with lectures that contain the content of the faith, but the life that is lived, the modeling of faith, the participation in faith, the instruction in faith, the community life and the home life, and some specific instructions to fathers, the importance of children in the early Christian community, those kinds of things. I do want to say again at the outset of this last session today that I do not consider myself a model. I cannot say to you, as Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. I wish that I could say that, but I'm not sure that I can. I'm not sure that I'm the father or the husband that I ought to be. So I'm not saying to you that I am a model. I'm not saying to you, look at my life, look at how well I do things, and try to live like me. I will use some things that go on in our family as some examples just to spur you on to some thinking. But we are not setting our family up as an ideal family. And specifically, here are 17 things you can do that you can try in your home. And if you do these things, then your children will have faith. That I will not suggest either. These are not techniques. These may be suggestions or ideas that may help you as you attempt organically in your home of faith. We ended the period last time looking at a life of prayer and some things that we might consider at our mealtime prayers and mealtime discussions as we make mealtime a family worship time. We talked about praying with our children at night, made some specific suggestions, talked about praying over our children at night, and talked about modeling prayers for our children, where children are able to hear both their father and their mother pray, so that they are witnessing in their home the life and the concerns of their parents. Let's talk about what a life of reading can do in the home. We've talked about prayer, but let's talk about reading. And I mean that in several senses and in several contexts. Let me confess to you that we have not done a particularly good job of having weekly evening devotion time. I would attempt some things, Janine would attempt some things, and it just didn't work very well in our home, and that's been especially true as the kids have gotten older. Our evenings are absolutely a zoo. Those of you who've got kids that are still at home, those of you who remember what it was like having kids, evenings are pretty tough. We felt guilty about that. We began a tradition several years ago that has worked better in our home. We read at the breakfast table. Now, what that meant for me when I was growing up is that we read the newspaper at the breakfast table. That's taboo in our home. That was tough for me. Janine just would not allow, when we were married, even without kids, wouldn't allow me to read at the table. I couldn't believe it. I'd always read at the table. And she just insisted. You can read before the meal, you can read after the meal, but at the table we're going to talk. But what we've done now with the kids at breakfast is that we will read a short passage of Scripture at the table and take a few moments to talk about it. The whole devotional may last not more than 7 minutes. But they are the most important 7 minutes of our day. It has meant a very significant change for our children. We have typically read, when the kids were younger, we read from a Bible storybook. Now we're reading typically from a gospel, though we have gone through a couple of epistles and working with our children. We'll read a short section, and then we'll ask each of the children at least one question. And we'll attempt to make specific application of that passage to those kids in their day. What this will mean in their relationships, what this will mean in relation to their teachers, what this will mean in relation to their schoolmates, what this will mean in relation to your attitudes. I'm telling you, it has made a significant difference in how our kids go about their day. And I would recommend for those of you who may have difficulties we have finding evening devotional time that you consider doing reading at the breakfast table. If you can find time, if you can work it, I really would encourage you. I think it would be preferable to have some extensive, regular, family devotional time in the evenings. Singing time, praying time, study time, regular time, once a week or a more regular basis, but to have reading time together so that the family is reading together through the Word. That is something that I think that would be helpful for the family tradition. When our children were little, and as I was either in schoolwork or in ministry, and we still had children at home during the day, Janine found time every day to read and tell stories to the kids. This began when we were in Iowa, and when there was not an extensive Bible school program. We had, as I recall, Don, about 3 or 4, 5 or 6 maybe kids between age 0 and first grade. And we had about 6 kids between first grade and 12th grade, and about 6 kids between 12th grade and high school. Well, there were 3 classes before adults there during most of that time. So they were not going to get a lot of that in those classes. And Janine would spend time with the kids at home, and she would have them draw things and think things and tell stories and spend Bible time with those impact on those children's lives. Even if you have an outstanding Bible class program, I would encourage that kind of thing to go on. There's something about a parent sitting down with their children and reading to the children and telling stories to the children that does things that a Sunday school teacher cannot do. And I would encourage that strongly. We have spent time as a family reading things in addition to the Bible. We have chosen to read secular books that have some spiritual meaning, spiritual impact, either spiritual symbolism or that can have spiritual ideals. We began that as we made a long trip from Texas to Iowa and brought along The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Or Lion, is that right? The Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, the first of the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. We read that in the car on the way up and on the way back, and it completely captivated our trip. Every waking moment, we couldn't wait to get to the next chapter. The whole family sat and read. We were so consumed by that we just went one by one all the way through the Chronicles. What are there, 5? I forget how many. 5 books in the series. 7 books in the series. Wonderful set. Absolutely wonderful. Overtly Christian in its orientation. A wonderful Christian fantasy. And that began us in a process of reading books. It took us about a year, just off and on, bit by bit, evenings, weekends. When we made trips together, we would read. We read several of the books in the Little House on the Prairie series. Our girls especially were delighted in those books and were able to make Christian application and say, now, in our situation, in our context, what would you do? What would you do in a situation like Laura faced? Janine had us read Little Women. I'd never read Little Women. Janine found herself able to quote whole sections of it. She hadn't read it since she was a girl. We wept as a family when Beth, is it Beth that died? Yeah. And we just sat and cried, the whole family. It was a uniting experience. And then we read Little Men, and we've read a whole host of books in the years. So we're ready to start the Chronicles again. Now that our son is 6, we're going to read them again. We're going to go through the series. I can hardly wait. But we have done things as a family in reading. Part of that has been to instill in our children a love for reading, as we have read to and with our children from the time that they were young, it has instilled in them a desire to read. I am still convinced, and I said this the other day, that television paralyzes the imagination of our children. Absolutely paralyzes them. You do not need to use imagination when you watch television. It's all there visually for you. And television keeps our children from learning how to think and imagine. I read a little article at the Kinder's house in Reader's Digest, an excerpt from a book that Linda Ellersby had written, something about when television ate my best friend. It may be an article worth reading, but when television came and that family bought their television, it consumed her best friend, and it consumes most of our children. And it also instills in them values that are different than the values of the kingdom. But I would encourage you in a variety of ways, in the reading of texts and reading of other books, that you instill in your children a desire to read and to think Christianly in their imaginations. We've talked about prayer, we've talked about reading. Let me talk for a moment about family traditions, about the process of creating memories. Family life is a process of creating memories for our children. What is the book? Is it Shirley Dobson and Gloria Gaither that have written the book about creating memories for children? It may be a book that's worth your getting. It's important to have family rituals. Let me say that more clearly. You will have, and you do have, family rituals, whether you plan it or not. It is much preferable to plan your rituals than to simply live the rituals, because you will have family rituals. Families that never eat a meal together. It instills in the family certain values. There are a lot of things that we do without thinking about it, rituals that our families go through, patterns that our families develop, that will have an effect one way or another. If we're going to have spiritual values in our home, we're going to have to develop family rituals. We've done several, and you may know of some others. I want you to think in your homes of what it may mean. But let me give you a handful of things that we've done in our home. We have half birthdays in our family. This began for us when we were in Iowa, cold weather. Our, at that time, only daughter, whose birthday was in December, we found ourselves not able to give her on her birthday a lot of the things that we knew that she needed in the summer, like tricycles and things. 4 feet of snow in the ground in December, and that she will never be able to ride it for 6 months was cruel. We just couldn't do that. And so we decided that on her half birthday in June, that we would give some of those kinds of summer gifts. And it became a time of special celebration. We don't have people over for our half birthdays. As the kids get older, we haven't celebrated them as much. We did it a lot when they were younger. We don't have people over for half birthdays. We don't have birthday cakes for half birthdays. It's a family time. Just our family. We give one special gift on half birthdays. Our children know exactly when their half birthday is. You ask my son today, how old are you? And he is 6.5. And he knows exactly when that day is, when that day comes. It's been an important day for us. Thanksgiving is an important family day. It is for many of you as well. We decided, again, when we were at Iowa, and this came largely from the influence of a specific special family there, the Hoods, Don. We spend time on Thanksgiving with needy family or with students who live a long way from home and can't go home to be with their family at Thanksgiving. Foreign students, needy people, and others that may not have a family to go to. That's our family tradition. We spend the month of November looking for people. The family thinks, who could we have over? Who won't be able to go home for Thanksgiving? The last 2 years we have participated in just a citywide project of delivering Thanksgiving meals to needy families throughout the city of Abilene. The whole family goes. Thanksgiving is a day to give to others. Our kids can hardly wait to go take the Thanksgiving turkey and dressing to people who cannot make for themselves, who are too poor to have it, and to have the people over to our homes. That's an important family ritual for us. We have an important family ritual for Christmas every year. We have several friends that we give each Christmas ornaments to and receive Christmas ornaments from them. We know that for these families, we're not going to give other special gifts, but we share ornaments, and each of those ornaments has a special meaning or special message. Every city we've ever lived in, we've bought ornaments from. And each of the children have ornaments that have special memories, and a lot of the ornaments that they make in their schools. We go through a ritual. Every Christmas, we have the ornaments out in their groups. You know, Jay's ornaments, and we put the ornaments on the tree one at a time. None of this, everybody grabbing and going on the tree. Everyone puts the ornaments on the tree, and we remember. You remember this? You remember this? Remember when we were in Iowa? We went to Kelowna. Remember the little Amish people that are there? Yeah, I remember. Put the ornament on the tree. You remember this ornament? I made it when I was in the first grade. You remember this? Yeah, we do. And it takes a long time. The older we get, long affair. We can't put all the ornaments on the tree anymore. We're having to be more selective about that. But it has become an exciting time for our family. It is a time of family memory. We tell our story. Our family story is captured in the ornaments we put on the tree. As a family trying to separate the pagan celebration of Christmas from other meanings. I'm not asking, not everyone I know celebrates Christmas with anything religious. I know all those arguments. I know Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. But I don't want our kids to be caught up in a pagan celebration of Santa Claus. I would rather them think about the birth of Jesus. And so we do. We tell that story. And we have our Christmas as well. Well, several other things that we've done in terms of family traditions. Every other year we go to a family encampment up in Colorado for some friends mostly in the Midwest that we go to. It costs more money than we would like, and we save and save and save and save, but it has meant a great deal to our children and to us as well, that every other year we have this ritual, and many of you have been involved in family encampment. We've had I mean by that, our extended family. We had the first of my parents' grandchildren graduate from high school, the first, this last year. So we brought all the members of the family together, and we had a big celebration. We ate together. We all had gifts. We all had cards, and we really fussed over him. And it embarrassed him, and we knew it embarrassed him. He knew he was going to be embarrassed, but we did it anyway. It was important. It was really a rite of passage. I was graduating from high school, and we spent time, first of all, telling stories about Barry. These are Barry stories. This is what Barry did. You remember when Barry did this? Yeah. You remember when Barry did that? Yeah. We remember all those stories. And then we all talked about what we liked about Barry. And after we all kind of shared those things, then we spent time talking about what we wished for Barry in his future years. This is what we wish for you. This is the blessing that we seek for you, that you have this kind of future, that you serve the Lord in these kinds of ways, that you have these kinds of priorities. It was a full and rich evening. We cried a lot, and we laughed a lot. But that evening wasn't just for Barry. My kids watched and listened and told their stories. It was a part of our family story. Our Reese family, and to listen to my parents, the patriarch, matriarch now of this ever-expanding Reese clan that lives in or near Abilene, it was an extremely important time for us. We developed that family tradition, begun. Janine is the one who saw this. I think read it somewhere, and it's we're hoping will be very meaningful. As our children grow into adulthood, and I mean by that specifically when they reach puberty, we are engaging in a family tradition. This occurred in our home last weekend. I took our eldest daughter out on a date. We went out to eat. We spent the evening together, just the two of us, and we talked, we laughed, and we told stories. And I gave her a gift. Not just any gift, it was a special gift. It was a charm, a little key on a charm. And I told her the story. I said, you know, Jessica, this is not just any gift. This is a key. We want you to wear this on your charm. It is going to be difficult for you in your teenage years. You may not imagine this now, but it is going to be difficult for you as you get older. It's going to be difficult for you to maintain Christian values. This is a difficult world to live in. Most of your friends, if statistics hold, most of your friends, by the time they're in college, will have lost their virginity. Most of them will have slept around with somebody. I tell you that. It's going to be very tempting for you. This is a key to your purity. This is a key to your virginity. It symbolizes your not just technical virginity, but spiritual virginity and purity. And we want you to wear this on your charm bracelet or on a necklace around your neck. And remember your priorities. And if you get married, or when you get married to your husband, and he may wear it around his neck or whatever he wants to do to it, but we want you to give him the key to your purity. We cried, and we laughed, and I said, you know, Jessica, you don't have to tell this to anybody. You don't have to tell anybody. You can tell everybody if you want to. This is yours to do with whatever you want. It is now yours. But it was for us an important tradition, and I'll do it again with Jocelyn. We're not sure. We're still thinking through how to do this with Jay. We know that Janine will go out with Jay. I'm not sure exactly how the tradition. If you have any ideas, please suggest it to me. We've seen it only in relation to the girls, but it is. Let me tell you, it is as important for the guys to maintain their purity as it is for the girls. Amen. And we've got about 6 or 8 years, we hope, before we figure out what kind of tradition that we will do there. But that has become for us an important family tradition as well. Let me make one other word about the home before we move on to the affairs of the church and how the church can help us rear children in the Lord. And that's a specific word to fathers. I would say some special things to mothers, I think, but I'm not one, and I probably don't have a lot of credibility as a mother. More than that, I think that there may be a specific problem in relation to fathers. The chances of a child having faith increase dramatically when the father is faithful. I don't know how true statistics are. The numbers that I've seen is that when the father is not faithful, and I mean by that he is not religious, as well as aggressively or actively faithful, that the chances are only 1 in 5 that the child will grow up to be faithful. When the father is faithful, the chances are closer to 4 in 5. Now, we've already talked that this is more than just a matter of going to church. We're talking about aggressively faithful. I also know that brings some problems, because I know that there are a lot of mothers, some that are single mothers that are raising children in the Lord without a father, and it can be done. And I know that there are homes where the mother is a Christian and the father is not. And I'm not trying to bring extra pressure on them at all. Because those things can be done in the Lord. It takes time and energy, and it's one of the reasons why the whole community of believers needs to be involved, as we'll talk about in a moment. But it is absolutely imperative in our Christian homes that the father is overtly Christian, and that he lives by, consciously, Christian values, and that he is taking a lead in instructing the family in its Christian values. That's not to say that the mother cannot take a lead in that. That goes without saying. Of course she can, and must, and should. It's not that the only one who can take the lead in this is the father. I'm saying that the father must be taking the lead in many of these things. But what I find is that many of the fathers, most of the fathers in the churches that I have worked and in my own life, are so consumed by our work and by our vocation and by our interests that we do not have the time to spend with our children. Whoever told us that what matters is quality time but not quantity time was a liar. It is quantity time as well as quality is not enough. The child needs to be with the father as well as the mother. I had a good friend whose children were younger that was never at home, was in the evenings, almost every evening, studying or working. He never helped with the meals. He never changed a diaper. He never bathed the kids. He just didn't spend time with the kids. And his statement to me at one point was, well, when the kids are young, it's really the mother's responsibility as they get older. I'll be able to spend more time with the kids. And one to say, hogwash. They'll never let you spend time with them when they're older. You're not their father now. And you'll never be their father if you're not their father now. The old Harry Chapin song, you remember that? The Cat's in the Cradle, the Silver Spoon, little boy, live with the man in the moon. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when, but we'll get together then. Son, we'll get together then. Well, it's a sad song, and it is too often true in our churches that the fathers are just simply gone too much and working too much. And your job and your income is not worth it. Let me tell you what I don't always do this. I know why people ask this question, but let me tell you how I sometimes answer and how I'm inclined to answer the question, what do you do? What is your profession? You know in my heart of hearts what the answer to that question is. I am a homemaker. Now, but I teach, and I bring some income in teaching, and that's also a ministry, and I'm given to that as well. But my primary responsibility as a father is as a homemaker. I am a homemaker. I am as much a homemaker as my wife is. Whoever said that the wife is the homemaker and the father is the breadwinner? Whoever said that? That's not biblical. In the family, both of you are homemakers. You know, the father is not devoted to time at home and loving the kids and reading to the kids and praying to the kids and being devoted to the kids and changing the diapers of the kids and all the other things that are part of the responsibility of being a homemaker. I think that we decrease significantly the chance of those children never growing up in the Lord. Well, I could go on that, but that's my soapbox for the day. We've got just a few minutes. Let me talk some about the church as an environment for faith development. The whole community of believers, both in the ancient Hebrew community and in the Christian community in the first century, it was not just the family's responsibility, but it was the responsibility of the whole group. We all need to take upon it the task of rearing our children in the Lord. It's difficult for a family to make it on its own. We need relationships, and that can be done, I think, in a variety of ways. Let me suggest several. First of all, in the context of the congregational assemblies. The assemblies, as designed in most churches of Christ, are for adults only. We might as well rate them, PG-13, because, or just PG, maybe are, because anyone under 17 really has no place in the assembly. There's nothing for them. They can't understand what's going on. The songs have nothing to do with them. The sermon is for adults, and it's boring to the kids, and they check out. And why we expect them at somewhere around 14, 15, 16 to check in, I don't know. But we're not instilling in our assemblies the sense of community. I think this is imperative in our churches, that these be family assemblies and not just assemblies for adults. I have very mixed emotions about children's worship and children's Bible hour. I've got mixed emotions about it. On one hand, I think that it's good and important. Our kids have learned from it, and I've led it and participated in it so that there is an opportunity for our children to have some things done at their level. So I'm not opposed to it. It's certainly not unbiblical. But I would rather, at least from time to time, that some of those things be done in the assembly with the whole group. I think that there ought to be a place in our assemblies to have a special part in the assembly for children. To have the kids come up to the stage at some part in the assembly and to sing songs with the kids, or have the kids sing songs so that their parents hear and understand and love and are able to share in the experience. I know of one congregation that every Sunday night the kids are brought up on a stage and they sing some children's songs. I think it's for the children. I love to have a service for the kids. They've got to be short. You don't have an hour and 20-minute service for the kids. But to bring the kids up and around and to sing children's songs, not just with the kids, but with the entire congregation. I mean, a bunch of us are old sticks in the mud and don't want to do all the motions, but what a joy and a delight it is for the kids to see the elders that are doing the motions and singing the children's songs, and to talk to the kids and to listen to the kids and to pray prayers that the kids can understand. Maybe a repeat after me prayer where you say a phrase and the kids say it with you to learn how to pray. I typically will tell a short story, just a kind of a modern or contemporary story that has a moral or particular application that can be made. And then somewhere in the service we'll tell a Bible story that will root the moral story that they've heard into the biblical witness. And the whole thing may last not more than 30 minutes. I wish we'd do it once a month, if not more often. But at least from time to time, there need to be some special places for the kids. I think that even in our regular adult assemblies, there need to be some time for explanations to the kids. I think that the Lord's Supper, from time to time, needs to be explained in language that the kids can understand. However it's done, I think we need to rethink worship so that it becomes a total family affair, a community affair, and not just something for the adults. Secondly, let me talk about congregational traditions. I think churches need to have traditions. And the church that I was a part of in San Antonio, the main tradition of the church was July 4th. I didn't choose that, but that's just the way it had always been at Oak Hills. Every day, food, games, talent show starts at mid-morning, it ends at sundown, and we just go and go and go, and it's a wonderful day. The kids will tell the story as they grow older of celebrations. Churches that have church reunions every 5 years or so, where all the people are invited to come back, or 20th or 25th or 50th anniversary, a reunion for the entire congregation. You may do what you want in relation to Christmas and Easter. I know arguments against it as well as for it. What I am not particularly having them is secular holidays. I don't think that Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny have anything to do with what we do in our assemblies. I really don't. I was appalled that one of the churches that I went to, the first Easter that I was there, they had an Easter parade and all the dresses and things, and it was all the Easter Bunny. And I thought, well, Easter Bunny, I'm just not going to get into it. That's all right with the kids at home, and I don't mind the Easter egg hunts and whatever. But if the rest of the world is celebrating the resurrection of Christ and we're celebrating the Easter Bunny, what in the world's the matter with us? I would much prefer that we spend the time celebrating the resurrection, and that can be done perhaps in a variety of ways. We have baby dedications in most of the churches that I've been a part of. periodically, typically quarterly. The families that have had children are asked to come. We'll have an entire assembly around those kids. We will ask the congregation, will you commit yourself to helping these parents rear their children in the Lord? Will you be with them when they need you? Will you support them? We will have them affirm that verbally. I will. To have a special service where the children are dedicated to the Lord. That's not to be Presbyterian Catholic. No, we're not talking about baptizing the kids. We're not talking about pronouncing salvation on the kids. We're talking about declaring in the midst of the congregation that rearing these kids in the Lord is vital, and that the church will help you and be with you in that process. I think we need to rethink how we do baptisms. Not do it in a perfunctory way. One of the most moving baptismal services I've ever seen was done by my best friend, former roommate, when his daughter was baptized recently. There was a considerable period of time spent on that baptism. They got in the water, and he told stories about this daughter. I don't care that it takes time. This is the most important event in all the world. Don't need to be going on to other things. And he shared with her story, and her parents, and her grandparents, and her great-grandparents' faith, and the commitment that was being made. And they went into the water. In other words, the parents planned a reception for the daughter, and the whole church was invited there at the building, and they all came, and they hugged her, and they loved her, and they gave her words of encouragement, and it was a half-a-day affair. That child will never, ever forget that day. This is not a matter of, well, you did it, here's a confession, thanks a lot, baptism, let's go on. But somehow we need to rethink the baptism tradition. Congregations that do graduation traditions, I think, do a service to their seniors in high school. To have them come to the front, to have an elder speak to them, to have a parent speak to them, to have one of the kids as a representative of that class to come up and speak a word to the congregation, to have a former graduate to come, to have a congregation commit itself to those kids, to say, we'll pray for you in the coming years. Maybe to give them some sort of a gift, a Bible or something, on behalf of the congregation to remember. I know congregations that have regular Passover celebrations. This may seem odd to you, but it's not just simply to celebrate a Jewish Passover, but to participate in the Passover and understand now its new and Christian application and meaning. And it becomes a marvelous healing and growing and nurturing experience for the children. There are congregational traditions that can be done that will help significantly our children grow in the Lord. A word or two about teaching. Even in our regular set classrooms, that teachers are original and vivid and fresh and prepared and vibrant and rethink a situation and not always, in fact, rarely lecture, but involve them in the story and in centers and in activities and participation. This is not a time to talk about a philosophy of education for our children, but it is to say that we've got to spend more time in preparation than what many of our teachers do. And yet my kids have been touched greatly by marvelous Bible teachers through the years, for which I'm very, very appreciative. I would encourage that in a whole variety of ways that we model for our kids and with our kids what Christian activities are. I know a family, an elder of the church and his wife in San Antonio, that are extremely evangelistic and are out every weekend talking to people and evangelizing. They take their kids with them. Those kids grew up thinking that evangelism was a natural part of their life. That's what Mom and Dad did. Each of the kids is now involved in that in the most natural of ways. They didn't just drag them along. Those kids were involved in the process. Down in the inner cities, in the barrios of San Antonio, those kids were with them. For the parents to draw their children in the process of their life and work and not send them out to a babysitter while they do those things. And then finally, in a variety of ways, to have encouragement for those kids, to send letters of encouragement to the children, One of the most important things that I did in the last couple of years in sent process to all the members of that congregation, but also the children. Anytime there was an event that took place of significance in a child's life, they needed a letter from somebody. Saw that you received a citizenship award at school. Congratulations! We're so proud of you. Noticed that you hit a home run in a baseball game the other day. I want you to know that we're thrilled for that, and we also want you to know that there's nothing in life that can compare to the kind of home run that you hit with the Lord. Whatever is done that's appropriate for an 8-year-old. Thinking about you. You're important to me. Send letters of encouragement. Whatever you do, don't ignore the children. And in times after the assembly is over, instead of just congregating as adults, while the children run up and down the aisles, and someone usually will say to them, don't run in the church building. Why not spend time with the children then? Why not kneel down children's level and talk to them, even the ones that you don't know, and hug them and give them just a word, so that the life of their church will be meaningful to them. Whatever we do, I would urge us to take time in our churches and in our homes to rearing them in the Lord, to model for them, to have them participate with us in that life, and to instruct them, to impress upon them, to whet their spiritual and intellectual appetites with the things of the Lord. And I think when we do, then I think that our kids organically will grow into the Lord and will become people of faith in their own right. Well, that's a whole barrage of things, and I appreciate your attention with all that. And we're past our time, but I appreciate your response, and my prayer is that for you and your congregations, for you and your families, whatever your age, whatever your life circumstance, that we will be a community of believers that is committed to rearing our children in the Lord.